Autoweb. Welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, the #1 resource for automotive sales professionals, managers, and owners to learn how to make money, accumulate wealth, and to all out ball out in the auto industry. And now your hosts, Sean V. Bradley and L.A. Williams.
1, 2, 3, 4,
Autoweb.
Hey everybody, this is Sean V. Bradley, president of Dealer Synergy, wow baby, and the creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Facebook group, the #1 Facebook group in the automotive industry, creator of the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast and the Millionaire Car Salesman Club on Clubhouse. And I've got a very, very special guest, a very good friend of mine. He is an international badass, you know what I mean? He is a best-selling author. He is a life coach. He's a business architect. And he's a professional speaker. So it is Magic Mike. His name is Mike Zeller. So Mike, welcome to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, brother.
Glad to be here, my friend. Can't wait to dive in.
All right. So folks, I'm gonna tell you right now, I met Michael on Clubhouse a while ago. And then I interviewed him for my nationally syndicated broadcast radio show from iHeart and all the radio stations that I was working with across the country. And let me just tell you before I get into this, Michael is probably one of the most interesting people that I've ever met in my life. I mean, he's connected to, you heard of the Illuminati, right? So I don't know if they're Illuminati members, but they definitely should be, because this is like the most elite people in the world. Because of Mike Zeller, he hooked me up with a guy named Mark Victor Hansen, who is like one of the most prolific authors ever. He's got 508 million copies of books sold, 319 books published, 59 New York Times bestsellers. And that's his friend. You know, he hooked me up with John Asseroff, the guy from The Secret. I was fangirling, like, oh my God, John Asseroff from The Secret. That was Mike Zeller. Natasha Graziano, the #1 motivational speaker in the, female motivational speaker in the world. And just the Rolodex that we would all be just envious of. And then on top of that, I actually hired Mike to work with me to take my Sean Bradleyism, my everything that my life story from the streets to the TV show, all that, to help architect that for me, for my business model outside into the Tony Robbins era, to the Les Brown era, to that type of stuff, which is to the general public, the 7 billion people on this planet. So again, and he was actually our keynote speaker on day one, and a lot of dealers signed up with him in his program. So, I mean, this is like, I feel like I'm like Apollo Creed, and I'm like, and the master of disaster and the king of sting and all these other things, Mike Zeller. Wow. Okay. So Mike, with all that, I mean, that's a hell of an intro. Let's talk about that. How the hell do you know so many elite people?
Man, I would say it's just a commitment myself to pursue my best self. Like, I'm just resolved and have stacked year after year, decade after decade. I mean, well, I'm only 42, but just really also being a person of value in the sense of creating value for others. Like, people generally know, hey, if I'm connecting them to someone else, it's a worthwhile connection for both people. And so when you create an environment of trust, of connection, of esteem, mutual esteem, and I love lifting others up. So when we all rise together, it makes it easier to make meaningful connections when people are like, all right, Mike's a generous, trustworthy dude that really knows his stuff and is pursuing excellence himself. So I think that's a big piece of it.
So what would you say, like when I say the statement that people are just people, meaning that there's so many times that people fangirl. I was just joking around with the word fangirling, you know what I mean? Like, oh my God, you know what I mean? But like John, Mark, Sean, Natasha, Mike, we're all just people. Some of us have like really unique experiences or skills or passions, but sometimes people don't believe that celebrities or people that achieve super high level of success are just regular people.
Man, it's funny. I was backstage at this concert and I met these guys, Switchfoot. They were a big band, had a massive hit. I forgot what their song was. And with my wife, we were meeting these other artists. Need to Breathe, I think is the artist. And they're like, it's a big, 7,000, 8,000 person concert, outdoor concert that we're at. And I wasn't intimidated at all. My wife was like, and I'm over here talking to lead singer. I'm like, hey, so what do you do? Well, I sing in a band. It's called Switchfoot. I was like, oh yeah.
That's crazy.
And my wife's over here, like she's kind of starstruck, and I'm like, just, oh, that's cool. And then he's like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm into real estate and entrepreneurship and et cetera, et cetera. So I had to just being genuinely interested. And like when I met Gary V, I met Gary Vaynerchuk at another mastermind event, and I was like, what's up, Gary V? Dude, are the Jets going to be any good this year? Like, I know he loves the Jets. And so we just talked about that for a sec. And just flipping instead of in awe of being interested in what they care about, not what they've done. We can be a fangirl about what they've done. But if I want to make a real connection, I got to be interested in where they're going.
Yeah, that's powerful. So the lesson in this is that, especially now with social media, the access to people is insanely realistic. I mean, like on Clubhouse, you could pretty much talk to almost anybody, potentially, if you know when they're going to be online and they're going to have a room. Mm-hmm. I mean, even hell, cameo.com, you get personalized messages. I think that this is good in a certain way that when there's so much access, I think, then the potential of individual evolutions there, meaning that, like with having you on the show is I want to be able to give access to my industry to someone like you that could help people, whether it's on a personal, emotional level, or it's a business strategic, or all the above. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Yeah. Right. And I think continue. My bad.
So no, go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say, I think when you look at, how to win friends, influence people, never eat alone, and some of these other philosophies around like building great relationships, one of my core questions I love to ask people is like, what does my environment need to look like for my success to be inevitable? Doesn't mean it happens overnight. We all go through bumpy parts in life and business and all that. But if I design my environment where I'm around good people, where I'm feeding my mind, where I'm lifting others up, eventually, I've planted enough seeds, and I figure out how to plant the seeds in the right crops and all that I'm going to reap some good harvest. And one of the number one determinants of whether or not I will reap good harvest is whether or not I have healthy, mutually supportive relationships with people that can help me rise as I help them rise. So like we were talking about earlier, that interdependence, but being hyper intentional about it. And if you trace back almost every single successful person, successful in the holistic view of life, not just eccentric, like very talented. You can be very talented, but also burn people out. You look at like an NFL player like Antonio Brown. He's incredibly talented, but heck, Tom Brady, he was trashing Tom Brady on social media at one point. Who does that as a former player? No one.
Yeah, crazy.
That's telling me that, and you're AB, you've been through all these prison things, or all these things that went wrong, and you've been the one acting out. And now, anyway, so you got to be wise and intelligent. How do I add value? How do I lift people up? And Tom Brady didn't even respond. He just said, hey, AB needs some help. He's a good dude.
Now, Michael, what's interesting is that you are not just a global speaker, best-selling author, business architect, life coach, awesome human being. You're also a former dealer principal. So you owned your own. Did you own more than one, or did you own one dealership?
Just one. Yeah.
Okay, so that's more than most people have, so no doubt.
Yeah.
All right, so you were a dealer principal, and how long were you running your own store?
We had our own store for about 5-6 years, and so
Wow.
we sold a lot of cars during that time period. It was a great experience. I sold it in 2017. I sold my equity in 2017.
All right, so look, I've been in the whole automotive industry for like 23 years. And to go from being a dealer principal, from owning a car dealership, to becoming a motivational human being, like a life coach and a business architect, and all this stuff, like how's the transition? How do you connect? Usually dealers want to buy more stores. You sold your dealership, and then you went on a global level helping other entrepreneurs. So help me understand the why and the how that happened.
For me, I knew I was called a mentor. Like I remember in my first ever affirmations board, inspired by Tony Robbins, where you write out affirmations or declarations of the things you're going to be, how you're going to show up in life. And I wrote down one of them was that I mentor and lead some of the brightest and best people in the world. And I wrote it down at age 31. And at the time, I was just investing in real estate and selling real estate and had a few other little things. And then eventually started my car dealership and other businesses. But I was like, you know what? I'm meant to do that. And I thought I would do it right around the time I was 40, that I would get really serious about it. Well, that's pretty much what happened. Is as I got closer and closer to 40, I started selling off these other ventures, getting bored, like frustrated, things not working out. And it was almost like partly I made a lot of dumb decisions. Also, I consciously chose to get out of certain businesses. And then the third part is there was layers where I felt like I was almost catapulted, like life, there's divine forces at play, or source, universe, whatever. God or the universe is also working in your favor, working towards calling you to your highest good. And sometimes the obstacles are the way, as Marcus Aurelius once said. Their obstacles are in the path to cause you to lift up. You think of resistance. A Boeing 737 weighs 485 tons. How does that heavy metal bird get into the night sky? It has to face an invisible substance, air, fast enough and hard enough that air catapults it into the night sky. Right? So you got to face your resistance hard enough and fast enough that it lifts you up. And I had to go through that journey, and the transitions are messy. Most people, you got to stick through the transitions long enough to have that vision strong enough, the determination, the faith, the hope, because it was bumpy. I went through a season, I frankly lost a lot of money and had a big reset. And now I'm on the upswing again, and it feels great. But I'm a lot wiser, and hopefully make a few less stupid mistakes. And but I'm also surrounded by some good people like yourself.
So this is really interesting. This is the first time I've brought people from outside the automotive industry, from the New York Times bestselling authors, former presidents of the National Speaker Association, like my friends and my colleagues I brought in. But this is the first time that I brought somebody super high level from outside the automotive industry that actually had significant automotive experience and understanding of the automotive industry. I mean, owning a dealership for multiple years, you have a unique insight. So before my conference, I had you keynote. I told you what my opinions were. Here's what I believe for 23 years at a super high level, national trainer, right? Is that right now in January 2022, first quarter 22, I believe the biggest challenges, there's a ton of them, but some of the biggest challenges are inventory. Because of the chip shortage and the chip crisis, it had an adverse effect with, having severe depletion of new car inventory, which also rose dramatically new car prices and the used car prices. So here's what the conundrum is. Most dealers are selling cars like candy bars. Like it's fucking raining money right now. Dumbass people that are not intelligent, that suck at running and managing and owning dealerships are making fortunes right now, and so it's almost not like real, but it's real because it's really happening. But what it's doing, it's creating like we've been in this pandemic for 2 years. There's people that have only sold cars for 2 years that have never sold before the pandemic yet. So when the bubble hits, and it will hit when inventory goes back into play, a lot of these fledgling automotive professionals that think that I'm experienced, I've been doing this for years now. You haven't been doing this before the pandemic experience. So that's one problem is that. Now, besides the pandemic crisis and the aftermath of that, we've had long-term problems in our industry with attrition. As I told you, before the pandemic, there was a 70 to 80% attrition for showrooms, which is atrocious. In our industry, people prefer to throw a shit ton of money in marketing, advertising, and shit that doesn't work, that they don't understand, better than they do in human resources. Unfortunately, they don't value their human capital. Maybe it's self-deserved or self-inflicted, a little bit of both. And then the last thing I'm going to say to you, those are the problems that I see from the pandemic and then from the industry. But on an individual basis, as an individual salesperson, as an individual manager, the problem is that they do not fucking respect the opportunity of entrepreneurship within car sales. Car sales for the last 23 years, and before I even was born, it's car sales is like owning your own business. But too many people, whether you're in sales or management, they don't respect that. So those are my three biggest like burners right now. And with your experience and background, I'd like you to talk about each one of those 3 points.
So recap, give me a quick recap.
Okay, so the first one, let's just do one by one, is, okay, so the reality, I believe, is that the pandemic is creating a false narrative. Because of the pandemic, a lot of these dealers are making higher grosses because if you have the car, it's in stock, it's over list, or it's, at list or whatever it is. But once the inventory comes back, it's the race to the bottom where there's going to be rebates, incentives, and people are trying to cut each other's throat to sell cars and things like that. So my problem with that, and here's the question, is how do we prepare as an owner or manager our organizations for the reality when the butterflies and bubbles dissipates and the reality kicks in, where they've got to turn on and focus on training and skill and competition instead of, do we have the car in stock or not?
Yeah, I think it's one of the biggest challenges that I see with the car industry in general, and you're hitting on it there. It's the red ocean versus blue ocean concept. If I'm in a red ocean, that means there's other sharks in the water, and it's a commodity-based industry where you're competing primarily on price. And so if you're fighting head to head, then guess what? It's kind of like sharks in the water. There's blood in the water. It's shark eating shark eating the fish. Like you're gonna get bloody. All right, and margins will shrink again. So the second piece then is, how do you get into a blue ocean? Like when I kind of thought about my car dealership in comparison, like a blue ocean, we didn't really have a blue ocean. We had a little bit of blue ocean positioning because our goal was to create the best car buying experience, combined with we give away cars to single mothers in need. So a slightly different positioning. So we had a CarMax meets Tom's Shoes type philosophy, and we gave away $300,000 worth of cars to single mothers in need. All right. So it did help protect our positioning some, but the challenge is, so Uber and Lyft, they were more blue ocean positioning. Like they have very little competition, higher margin. That's why they're, multi-billion-dollar companies. And, Providence Auto Group is gone at this point, because after I sold it, they eventually, closed down. So the thing to think about is like, all right, how do I create positioning, like owning real estate in the prospect's mind? If I'm competing head to head, and the only tool I got is a price tool, I've got some challenges, right? So one of the things I love that Porsche is doing, for example, from a manufacturer side, is they're creating experiences where you can rent a Porsche 911 for $350 a day. You can rent a Taycan for the all electric for $350 a day. So if you want to go and get a full on test drive and experience of a Porsche, instead of just doing a short, 10-minute test drive, like I want a Porsche. It's on my goal to have a Porsche at some point. So
I've had a couple.
Which one? 911 or?
No, I had the SUV, the Cayenne turbo.
Yeah,
I've had an S and a turbo.
Yeah, those are badass for the turbos. But so like, how do you create positioning that makes you attractive? And also like Porsche and BMW rolled out the new car, like you swap out your cars as much as you want for $2,000 a month or $1,500 a month, and insurance is included and all that. So like, because they're trying to find different ocean space. All right, because if they're competing head to head, you're going to eventually lose. So as the pandemic, supply chains balance out, then how do I create a remarkably different customer? Like the 6 levers of blue ocean: ease of use. So you think of Carvana. I had a chance, almost had dinner with the CEO and founder of Carvana last week while I was in Arizona. Wealthiest guy or one of the wealthiest 3 people in Arizona. Actually, so my buddy Aaron's friends with him. So anyway, what did he do? Ease of use, convenience. Then you think through, all right, how to make my brand, my company if I'm a Toyota dealer and I'm competing with another Toyota dealer, how do I make my brand and my experience way more fun? That still fits within the manufacturing parameters. Maybe you're dancing in the gray areas. Like way more fun, way more convenient. Third thing is it could be for the environment. Like, what did Toyota do with the Prius lineup? What's Tesla doing with all electric? What's Audi doing with electric? All right, now I'm owning a different space. There's a lot of space. There's way more innovation capacity in the automotive industry than there was 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
It's actually a very exciting time. So I think it's experimenting and trying to find that blue ocean, because if you're in the red ocean, you're gonna get bloody.
Okay.
So that's my
very,
first thought.
very well said. That's freaking awesome. So number 2, some data. Again, the average attrition for a dealership is between 70 and 80%. That means if there's 10 salespeople on the showroom floor, 7 to 8 of them are not going to be there within 1 year, which is crazy. The average dealership spends over $65,000 a month in advertising and marketing, but they spend less than $1,000 in training, team development, team building, and professional development, those type of things. So how do you spend $65,000 a month in throwing ads against the wall and only less than $1,000 training your entire organization and team building? So I think there's a disconnect in value of human assets versus marketing, advertising, spray and pray. What do you say to that?
After these messages, we'll be right back.
Attention auto dealers, you need an opportunity to do business. AutoWeb is one of the largest suppliers of high quality leads. High quality buyers. At a 10% closing ratio, you will be at less than $190 per car sold. Don't just settle for what you get. AutoWeb can fully customize your results through targeted markets and/or zip codes, and as a partner, you will get premium placement within search results. Who better to do that than literally the people that invented automotive internet sales? If you want to sell more cars more often and more profitably, then you need AutoWeb.
100%. I think the biggest challenge with that is like, all right, in this new paradigm, so many businesses and industries still operate like we're in the industrial age, and it's like the primary worker output measurement that workers care about is compensation. All right, compensation is a core piece, and you gotta have compensate people well enough so it's off the table. So the compensation is not a significant discussion point. But then it's kind of like that Maslow's hierarchy of needs of like, all right, once my food, safety, shelter is taken care of, then I care about other stuff. I care about purpose. I care about autonomy. I care about mastery. This is where your 3 core drivers, once your basic human needs are met, that people care about. This comes from Daniel Pink's Thrive book, or Drive. Autonomy, they want to be self-directed, right? And especially in today's day and age where you're facing challenges of remote work, and you look at the number one, Cody Carter and Christy and your own daughter, what have they done? They created their own brand. They created their own entrepreneurial drive. Like they had freedom to experiment, even if their dealer or whatever might have said, that's not a great idea. They went ahead and did it, and now Cody's selling 150 cars a month, Christy 73, your daughter 20, 30, 40, whatever.
20.
Like, what's that?
20, just 20.
20, okay. Well, she'll get to 30 soon as well, but 20 in this day and age is phenomenal, right? As a young 20-something. So you got to look, all right, people actually, when you respect the individual, like what's off in most hiring practices, and you think of dinosaur industries. So I think of like, all right, manufacturing often is a dinosaur industry. Sometimes automotive can be a bit of a dinosaur industry in the sense of the mindset. Like there's people that are not dinosaurs, but then there's people that are acting like dinosaurs in their thinking. And human beings in today's day and age crave mastery. They want to grow, and they also want purpose with their work. So I think most people need to connect people to the purpose. Like I remember when I was really bored with selling real estate, and I wanted to get out of it for so long, and it's similar to automotive. And then one time I was at a Tony Robbins event, and he asked this question: "What business are you really in?" And I would say, I'm in, real estate. But what business are you really in? I'm actually in the business of helping people make some of the biggest life-altering decisions of their life. It affects their home life quality, their wealth, their stress, their commutes. Everything is dependent on that. And that re-galvanized my interest because I got connected to purpose. So when I think of what business is the auto salesperson in, and if I can connect, it's called, this other process is like the noble selling purpose. What is my noble selling purpose? Which is actually a great book too. But if I'm connected to my purpose, why I'm selling something, and then I'm helping people buy the car or the vehicle that is right for them, that their family is going to spend countless hours in, and it might protect them from a life-altering accident, or it might bring them joy, or whatever. It's also, buying a vehicle. It's almost like it's like buying a Gucci purse or whatever, right? Hey, it reflects your brand. Like when I had my Tesla, I felt like that reflected my brand. I've got an Audi right now that reflects my brand. Porsche, that reflects who I am, right? So it's a representative of it's an extension of their brand. And I got to get connected more with that and then sell from that purpose of, hey, this is more than a car. It's part of their life.
I would 1000% concur with you, my friend. So the next one is the entrepreneurship, because you are an entrepreneur, you're a business architect. Car sales. We talked about Cody right now. This guy sells 154 cars on the showroom floor in the middle of a pandemic. So that's not normal from the average 9+ cars a month for the average person. There's a big difference between 9 and 154. So how do we get salespeople to be more entrepreneurial? Now, before you answer that, I want to let you know, I just interviewed recently Kareem Ellis, who you met, who was in real estate. My statement to him was, look, man, I don't get it, because every real estate agent knows that as soon as they get their license, they're on their own, that they've got a market advertisement brand, yada, yada, yada. Why the hell is it that real estate agents have no problem understanding the reality that they got to hunt and gather, but salespeople at a car dealership think that they're stuck on the umbilical cord? So I want to hear your answer and tell you what he had said.
Yeah, great question. So my experience at car dealership, it is a little bit more versus being in real estate, because I actually worked for a Toyota dealer for a while before, while I was in grad school. And so I was on the sales floor for a bit. And what I noticed is it sort of does straddle that line between being a full-fledged entrepreneur or 1099 and partly being in a job role. So it's a little bit more as a job, like traditional, the way I've seen it execute is it's a bit more like a traditional job. Here's your hours, here's your thing, here's what you got to do, go and do this at this time, so you're kind of told what to do and how to do it over and over and over. Now I understand you got to have brand standards and processes, and training is really important, and you should model the success of others, because there's clues. Success leaves clues. So like if I have a chance to learn from you and you're going to show me how to sell better, freaking A, I'm going to learn. I'm going to adopt and walk in your shoes until I get it down. And then I might add my own special flavor. I might do exactly what you're doing, but I might add a little pizzazz or a little sprinkle here, a little sprinkle there of something different that just reflects me. And that's what you look at Cody and Christy and others. That's what they're selling their own way a bit, but they're not handcuffed by the ceilings and the limitations and the stories of others. And so the more they can embrace that, the better. And real estate agents, most of them flop as well. Like it's something like 70% of agents don't even sell like 3 cars a year. I don't remember the data, but
I mean, houses, 3 houses.
What's that?
Said 3 cars. You meant 3 houses.
3 houses. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Kareem had said that one difference is that during the training aspect, actually on the recruiting aspect and then on the training aspect, real estate agents have expectations set, whether they're successful or not. The difference is, I don't think, and when he said that, I think he's right. I don't think enough dealerships set proper expectations about this really being entrepreneurial. Maybe they do the suggestion. I think there's a difference between, hey, suggesting that car sales can be like your own business if you do it the right way versus setting the expectation. It is 1000% entrepreneurial. And I would almost use the analogy like a real estate agent, because if people knew from the beginning, from inception of the job opportunity, the career opportunity, to the complete onboarding and training that they've got to hunt and gather, I think that we would have more proactive people versus reactive people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's 100%. And I think if you look at, if car dealers embodied that and said, hey, you know what, how do we train our guys to be proactive, to be hunting for the prospects, to be hunting and building the brand, like the Cody Carter, what's Cody Carter doing that people keep coming back and they will wait till he has such loyalty, I would imagine, like the return rate. I remember reading like Joe Girard would write letters to all of his customers every month saying, I like you, or something like that. And you figure out, how do I create a reputation and become the person of authority and the person of trust in my community for whatever it is your business offers. And so if you're in the car side, hey, how do you build that reputation that people are like almost gonna be like, hey, you gotta go to Cody, or you gotta go to Sean, because he's gonna take care of you, treat you right, and his company always stands behind him.
1,000,000%, my brother. All right, so I have an open-ended type question here. So you were at the IS-20G. No, I'm curious, right?
I know.
You're at the IS-20G, and you signed up a bunch of people. So you had a lot of conversations with people. What do you think was the biggest challenge you heard? Because you had a great representation of dealers from multi-billion-dollar dealer groups, from some of the top dealerships in the region or in their franchise. You had owners, managers, BDC internet and automotive professionals there, and you had some of the top people in the world. So you had a very good diversified pool to judge my question. I'm asking is, in your opinion, I gave you what I think the industry is challenging with. Well, what are the pains? You don't have to mention anybody's name, but what are the pains that they brought to you? Do you feel that people had emotional, personal pain, luggage? Do you think it was stress, fear, pandemic? Do you think it was skill set, mindset? Do you think it was the dealership? What do you think the biggest challenge, I don't care if it's personal or business, that you got from all the attendees that you personally had conversations with? Hell of a question.
I think I think my answer is that there's most people in work in general, not just automotive, but most people still operating under that industrial age paradigm. And that is like, all right, it's the carrot or the stick that's going to motivate people instead of tapping into people's genius. Like when I look at part of what I do and part of the reason I wrote the book Genius Within is like, all right, is I've been studying, like my team is really motivated to work with me and they will stick through things. And I've found out in my, 15 years of employing people, when I tap into their genius and into their motivations and their drives, and I learn how to, now I'm not trying to get them motivated. I'm tapping into the motivation that's already there. And that drives people forward and people, I had some team members when I went through my rough spot that stayed with me through the thick and the thin, and that some of them would still come back, even though, I was going through hell in my business at the time. And it's because I really learned how to respect and appreciate the giftedness and the uniqueness of individuals. And when you look at like my favorite basketball player, Michael Jordan. Did you have a favorite basketball player?
Jordan, yeah. Of course.
All right, cool. But I knew you were from New York area and Philly.
It matters. So. I'm from the Michael Jordan era. What are you talking about? So yeah, it don't matter where I'm from.
Yeah. And who is the master though? The master savant that organized and synthesize, Dennis Rodman's flying out to Vegas and partying with Carmen Electra and waking up drunk the next morning and all that. Phil Jackson, he knew how to tap into the motivations and the skills and align the team. And so I think if I'm leading a company, automotive or not, if I become a master of motivating, of understanding, of appreciating and aligning people into their deepest area of genius, I can do almost anything. I can build a dream team.
That is this is why you're on this podcast, man. Can you repeat that shit? Because like, that is like, you started out by saying that one of the things that you got was that you could still see the antiquated mindset of what way people manage. Now, it's funny you say this because Covey talks about the see-do-get model, meaning that if you want to have true transformation, evolution, and long-term change that stays changed, you can't just superficially handle the end result or the end problem. You can't even change the focus just on the behaviors. You have to change the mindset and the paradigm. So what you just said, and I'm just trying to regurgitate to make sure that I understand you clearly, is based on all your experiences that, you know, point blank, that if you want to be a successful organization, and if you're the owner or the executive leader, you need to want to figure out how to manage, motivate, and unlock the genius within each and every one of your people. Because if you could unlock that superpower in them, and then if you could connect them interdependently together, the organization will be absolutely unstoppable. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, exactly. Spot on.
All right. So that's crazy. So then my question is, how do you change the paradigm? So talk to the people. There's a lot of people, that, like, from just what you saw, that listen to the podcast, like people I've never even met before that listen to the podcast all over the world, you know what I mean? Like, not just United States. So talk to them if they are, doing what they've been doing. I got to tell you right now, I have a guy, I'm not going to mention, he's probably listening. It's you I'm talking about. I have a prospect that just signed up with us or is about to close the contract on Monday. By the time this airs, you're not going to know who you are because it's different time and dates. But like Mike, for real, he's in his 40s and he's saying, look, my dealer's a little bit older. We just keep doing what we're doing. It is what it is. You know what I mean? I got a bunch of I got some car dogs. I got some old car dogs on the floor and I ain't fit to fuck around with them because they are going to let's walk out. At least you know what I mean? And so they have this mindset, of what they've been doing. So how do you talk to them? Speak into the damn mic, Mike, and figure out how you could talk to them and transform their mindset and why this different paradigm shift is necessary for just powerful evolution. Speak the truth, Mike.
So, yeah. So for the old car dogs, then what I would argue is like, hey, what if you tried some experiments? Because we all can try an experiment. And if you don't like what you get, you can go back, right? That's the cool thing about an experiment. So what if you tried getting to know your core team, your leadership? I like starting with a leadership team first. So you find out and you help people discover themselves. Remember the old classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. What does Carnegie say? Dale Carnegie said, hey, people, the sweetest name or sound to a person is the sound of their own name. What do they find themselves more interesting? So if you get other people to talk about themselves, guess what? They find you more charismatic. So one of the cool things as a leader is if I unpack and I get my team to be talking about their gifts, their genius, and I start helping them see their genius, see their, like when you provide a new enlightenment, new awareness, new growth, people like to grow. One of the 6 core human needs, here they are. Growth, love and connection is the second. Certainty, which means, hey, if I hop on a flight, I'm going to land safely in the next city. Uncertainty, I need variety. If I'm doing the same thing, I'm bored, right? 5th is contribution. We want to make a difference in the world. And 6th is significance. And this comes from Tony Robbins as well. But so if I tap into the growth need, those old car dogs, they still actually want to grow. Now, they may have forgotten that. Like my dad would qualify for one of those guys that's just like, still uses a flip phone. We even need to buy, my parents are literally buying him a pre-owned car right now with the least amount of gadgets so he doesn't get confused. I love it. He fits in that paradigm. But one of the things I just, even as his son, I'm tapping into what is he curious about? Human beings, we still long to be curious and grow. So I want to tap into that. And then I want to lead them into like even some of those strengths-based like assessments to find out their natural strengths and then help people recognize, you're really freaking amazing at this, but you also suck at that. And that's okay to suck. We all suck at certain things. But we're also pretty amazing at certain things. If I'm striving to improve my weaknesses, at best, I might become a little bit better, but I'll probably still be below average in my weaknesses. But if I strive to improve my genius, my gifting, guess what? I could become even more exceptional at that. And then if I manage my weaknesses, so as you're thinking about building a team, they didn't have Dennis Rodman. Phil Jackson did not have Dennis Rodman shooting threes at the end of the game. Who did he have? MJ. Or MJ might pass to Steve Kerr if he was wide open, or Scottie Pippen, or whatever. But MJ had the first shot, first opportunity, because he was the most clutch in that, and he had the right mindset, right ability to make his own shot. So you got to think through, like, we all have gifting. Sports gives us a great metaphor, but organizations, same freaking thing. The best businesses in the world, whether it's automotive, whether it's Apple, its heyday, people are aligned in the extraordinary positions that put them in the right position to flourish instead of flopping.
Yo, I'm blown away. This is what our organization needs. Again, and when I say organization, I mean the automotive industry itself, the National Automotive Dealer Association, the National Independent Automotive Dealer Association, they need to be adopting this type of philosophy, because it's too much, it's us or them. When salespeople are brought on the floor, it's almost like freaking, like dog fighting or some like fucking chicken fighting or whatever. It's like, you unleash the hounds, you know what I mean? And they got to turn around and step over each other to get an up. People are skating each other. And I've always, loved the concept of synergy. And as I got older and I owned all of these companies, synergy is defined as two or more agents that come together are greater than the individual effect. Interdependence is not about I or you or me or mine. It's about us and we. And I think, interdependence is one of the most powerful things for an organization. But again, the paradigm shift has got to happen if the automotive industry wants to grow and evolve and get better talent, get people. I'm going to share something with you. You didn't get to meet him because he wasn't able to go to IS-20G, but my nephew, Dylan, this kid, right, is 20 years old right now. And he's been in the industry for a little bit over a year, but he started selling cars, less than a year and a half ago. And he was making $12 an hour as a high school graduate, and he decided not to go to college at first. And he was going to, at the bank, he had a nice job at the bank, $12 an hour. Then he went from making $12 an hour. 6 months later, he's making $12,000 in a month. His first year on the showroom, which was like this year in 2021, he just made $102,000 selling Buick and GMCs in East Bumblefuck, Pennsylvania. You know what I mean? And I love the organization and my client, but my point being is that, my gosh, people don't realize that a 20-year-old kid could do that. People don't realize that a 21 or 22-year-old kid could make $250,000 selling cars, and with that money, invest that into real estate. And so my point being is that there's a lot more options. Like, do I want to go, even if I'm that talented, if I'm going with this, even if I can make that type of money, do I want to work in a Neanderthal, Cro-Magnon, psychopathic, antiquated establishment with archaic hours, and archaic practices, and it's fucking miserable? Or do I take less money, but in one of these corporate environments where they've got foosball and Legos and fucking PlayStation 5 and they have split shifts and things like that? I'm not saying that we need to turn around and go like romper room here, but I think that what you're saying is we need to change the paradigm and be, completely respected and respectful and appreciative of our human resources. So is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. And what happens is when people feel respected and heard, like if you look, number one thing, one of the top things that happened in the Great Resignation, which is like 12.9 million people quit their jobs between August and October of last year, 2021. One of the top things is they're not feeling respected, not feeling appreciated, not feeling like their talents and their strengths and all that are utilized, and then they're overburdened, too much responsibility, which is often they're out of alignment. And if you create alignment around this stuff, man, beautiful things happen, and people feel inspired and they'll actually take less money. And you also have clues. One of the crazy things, disc profile. My batting average for hiring great salespeople, for real estate, for automotive, for my current business, my coaching and mentorship business, about 70-80%.
Oh, wow.
And it comes down to a DISC profile. If you go through the DISC profile, the top salespeople in the world, they're 80 and above on the D and the I that I've experienced. Mm-hmm. Every single, that means they're dominant and interactive. And now you could be lower on one of those. You may not be the number one alpha, but you could do an exceptional job if you're like a 60 out of 100, on a D or I. But man, consistently. So it's just like I've got X-ray vision in my hiring and in my people development. And everyone can have X-ray vision in their hiring and their people development if they know what they're doing with the clues that are already there. But they don't know how to find and read the clues.
I have a business idea for you that we're going to take offline in the next 30
tell
minutes.
me.
Now we're going to do this off here. I ain't trying to let them know about our money that we're about to make. So listen, man, Mike, thank you so much for blessing the mic and, dropping some magic like you always do. And this is extremely insightful. We're definitely going to bring you back. And I want to thank you again for killing your keynote at the IS20G in Philadelphia. So thank you, my friend, Mike Zeller.
Glad to be here, my man.
So there you have it, the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast. This podcast comes to you every week from the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. If you have a question about the show or would like the chance to become a guest, feel free to contact us directly at 856-546-2440 or email us at millionairecarsalesman@gmail.com. This program is a presentation of Synergy Records, produced by Tiana Mick and L.A. Williams. Production and engineering by L.A. Williams. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is hosted every week by L.A. Williams and the Millionaire Car Salesman himself, Sean V. Bradley. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast can be found everywhere, so please don't forget to review, subscribe to, and share the show. Thanks for listening to the Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast, and remember, where I'm from, money provides options. The Millionaire Car Salesman Podcast is sponsored in part by Autoweb. If you enjoyed this podcast, then make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and leave us a review. Let some other folks know about it. Oh, and don't forget to join the Millionaire Car Salesman group on Facebook. We'll see you there.